FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. You're also watching it too on YouTube. Well, crazy times demand crazy people with crazy solutions, and that's what we're getting now for sure. Hey, if you want to share in the insanity, please email us, kl@kerrylutz.com, kl@kerrylutz.com. Tell us your opinion, what's going on. Right now, you're going to hear from Martin Armstrong, armstrongeconomics.com, the person who probably has one of the best perspectives on the situation. Martin, it's great to have you back. You were just at Mar-a-Lago last week before they shut Mar-a-Lago down, and now it's being disinfected, and probably they're looking for bugs from the Chinese and hidden spies. God only knows what's lurking in Mar-a-Lago, but it's great to have you back on. What is going to be here with our economy, with our stock market, with the world?
Well, quite frankly, I mean, the only thing that is remotely similar to this is when you had Pulitzer and Hearst create the Spanish-American War out of fake news. But that was one thing. Then there was investigations showed it was all fake. And they made up stuff, whatever. We're probably back at that again. But this time the damage is far greater because they're really causing an outrageous closing down of the economy. And people don't appreciate, you're not going to be able to get things back up. I mean, shutting down all these like restaurants and stuff like that. I mean, most of the waitresses are girls in college, so now they're all out of work. You have a lot of people down here in Florida on, spring break and things of this nature. There's talk they can't get back. Others that are on vacation or say you can't go to a food store. They're closing those down. You can't go out to what are you supposed to do? Starve? I mean, there's less than 8,000 people that have died. Less than 2,000 people worldwide have even have this thing. All right. Granted, fine, it can go up. But we have over 600,000 die from the flu every year. Nobody talks about that. Over, nearly 500,000 people die from smoking every year in America. Nobody talks about that. I mean, just between those two, you have 1 million people dying. When the flu was the worst in 1968, 3 million people died. We're talking about 8,000, and you're shutting down the entire economy?
The world's being shut down here.
It's really crazy because the damage economically is going to be profound. Trump can come out and say, "Oh, we're going to have an $850 billion package." That goes to like airlines, $150 billion, whatever. You have the bulk of the economy is small business, and they employ 70% of the people. Who's going to come out and bail out, mom and pop stores or local little restaurants and stuff? I mean, nobody. A lot of these places may actually just be pushed over the edge, and that's it. I mean, banks aren't going to be willing to lend to them.
Yeah.
This is really a very serious economic crisis that has been trumped up over this virus, which is not warranted.
Yeah, it definitely is not. And let's not forget, Martin, the seasonality. If you study flus, pandemics, etc., they go away in the spring. They'll come back in the fall, but where we'll be better prepared, have better treatments, and probably a vaccine. But the odds are close to 80% that this thing is going to go away between April 15th and May 15th. Because of many reasons, not the least of which is increased sunlight, UV rays. Sunlight truly is the best disinfectant when it comes to a pandemic, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, the flu season takes place during cold weather, not warm weather.
Yeah.
All these people saying, global warming, this is horrible. Actually, society does better in global warming rather than global cooling. But I mean, already, the outbreak, there's empty beds in China, South Korea. So you've seen it peak out already and begin to decline. The real question is this going to be now another, a parallel flu for next season? That's all. But I mean, basically, people don't realize, but there are over 200 varieties of viruses that create the common cold, which has been one of the reasons why it's hard to come up with a cure for it. There's just actually too many varieties. And, you have these things that are just developing, and that's nature. I mean, viruses are like an organism. That's it. But to shut down the entire economy when only 8,000 people have died worldwide, and you're talking about 200,000 people have it, this is really quite dramatic. I mean, the economic consequences of this is going to be very, very profound.
So let's talk about that.
Gold crashing. Why? Because you had hedge funds like Bridgewater involved, and then this is what I warned at our economic conference last October, that the decline our model was forecasting to begin in January. It's here. And what happened was, our minimum target on the Dow was 21,600, which we have reached and went down to just crack 20,000 today. But what we're really looking at here is, I warned back then, this particular crash would be a combination of the 2008 and the 1998. Mm-hmm. And the difference is, those who've been in the market longer, when long-term capital management crisis hit, they were all investing in the Russian bonds. So they tried to sell and there was no bid. So now you're losing money. You have to meet margin calls. So what do? They start selling everything else. Gold, Japanese yen, it had nothing. People were going, why is this going down? Fundamentally, It's okay. They just needed cash. And that's what's happening again. All right. They're
liquidity, huh?
Yeah, this is what a liquidity crisis looks like. Then you have the 2008 with the Lehman Brothers moment, and that's what the repo crisis is about. Banks don't want to lend to other banks because everybody's wondering who's going to be next. And then you have Europe effectively saying no bailouts, because what they're doing is they're saying that at that stage, what they would do, if there's no bailouts, then if you had any counterparty risk with Deutsche Bank or whatever, and Deutsche Bank went down, you lose 100%. So banks don't want to deal with any European banks. You can't just say no bailouts, period. So this is what the repo crisis is about. Banks don't want to step in the middle and make markets, so they say let the Fed do it. So the Fed, people think, this is quantitative easing. It's not quantitative easing. This is just providing liquidity to a market that nobody else is willing to do. Quantitative easing was different. That was buying in long-term debt and trying to inject cash in the market. The repo crisis is you're putting in 1.5 billion lines, but this is expiring every, it was normally 24 hours. They've extended some of it out to now to 3 months because you have the end of the quarter coming, and that's going to be a nightmare. Right. So they're two different aspects.
Okay, so stock market, is it going to recover from what's going on once this madness stops? Or did this set off, and if it wasn't this, it probably would have been something else. Did it set off a bear market that's going to be with us for a while?
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Trilogy Metals is a world-class developer in Alaska's Ambler mining district. The company already possesses 8 billion pounds of copper, 3 billion pounds of zinc, over 1 million gold equivalent ounces, and now over 77 million pounds of cobalt. Trilogy's Arctic project boasts an after-tax net present value of $1.4 billion with a 33% IRR. Trilogy is led by an experienced management team with with proven success in discovering and developing projects in Alaska. The company is well capitalized, has no debt, and possesses strong institutional support. Trilogy trades on the New York and Toronto exchanges under the ticker symbol TMQ. To learn more, go to trilogymetals.com. That's trilogymetals.com.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
No, I think what will happen is that when, eventually the market bounces. We're showing, yes, it will go back to new highs in the years ahead. But what that is about is you're talking about at this stage the lack of confidence in government. I just put out a report on the central bank crisis. And people don't realize the worst thing the Fed could have done was exactly what it did on the weekend. Cutting rates to zero, et cetera.
Yeah.
It went all in. So this is like a poker game. All right. I push the whole pile in and say, OK, fine, I'm calling you. And I'm bluffing. And the market's called the bluff. It went down further. All right. So that begins to undermine the confidence. If people then begin to realize, well, gee, the central banks really can't do anything here, then you're talking about a collapse in confidence in everything to do with government. Now, that's what the 1980 rallying gold was about. And I find it curious, people were storing, hoarding toilet paper back then as well.
Yeah, very true. I remember that. But that was because of Johnny Carson saying there was a shortage.
There's some joke, videos out there. A guy goes into Starbucks to buy a coffee, and he hands him 3 sheets of toilet paper, and the guy goes no tip, and he gives him a 4th one. But this is what's going on, what made gold go up then was the fact you lost complete confidence in the government being able to do anything, and that's what we see coming. We're not quite there yet, but the Fed did everything it could. It shot the whole 9 yards in here, and there's nothing else they can do. Negative interest rates do not work. Europe's had negative interest rates since 2014. They're so low. What are they going to do? They can't lower rates to stimulate. They've completely blown their economy out of the water. So now you have the German finance minister actually came out and said, well, maybe the solution is we nationalize companies. And people wonder why the DAX fell like 50%. If you're a shareholder in anything in Europe and they said, oh, well, to save the company, we're going to nationalize it, the stockholders get zero.
Yeah, they have to kill the market to save it.
It's just amazing, but I don't know. I've been in this game for a long time, more than 40 years, and I've never seen such political incompetence in my entire life.
All right. So bringing that up, you were at Mar-a-Lago recently and got to meet the commander-in-chief. So we all know what the left says about him. We all know what the right says about him. What is the truth here about him?
No, I've met just about every president. I didn't meet, Barack, but I would say what I am impressed with him is that he will at least change his mind. Whereas a career politician like Merkel, letting these people in was not a problem.
Right.
And she'll go down in flames, not admitting that her allowing all the refugees in was the catalyst that brought Brexit and everything else.
Yeah.
So they'll never take responsibility, where Trump will change his mind back and forth. So, that's I think that is at least one good quality of him. And I know a lot of people don't like, he says stupid things. My view is that, look, at least you know what he really thinks, where the rest of them smile at you, oh, yes, I feel your pain, and they call you an asshole when they turn your back,
And then they stick a knife in your back.
Yeah, I don't know. It's what he did say there is he didn't come out and say what I've been saying, but he did say he did not know who he was running against.
Yeah, it's not going to be Biden. Biden, there's no possible way Biden can
Now, he
run.
was actually quite conciliatory towards Biden. He kind of felt bad for the guy. And because really the rumor is behind the curtain is that he has dementia.
Yeah.
You know,
Of course.
he running in South Carolina, I think it was. He says thanking everybody for supporting his run for the Senate. You know, you're running for the president. You know? Then says, "Oh, your sister's very good," and hugs his wife. Yes, that's your wife. It's not your sister. You know? Stuff like this.
Like a scene from
The general
Chinatown.
gist of this is that they backed out, pushed Biden up to stop Bernie.
Exactly.
But neither one will have enough votes for a first ballot. So what the gist of this is that they're going to draft Hillary, which is why she's going around to all these little talk shows and popping her face up. That's the real plan. They feel that Hillary
suicide.
can beat Trump. Biden, no way Bernie will. So the only plausible thing is that they draft Hillary, which is why Elizabeth Warren won't endorse anybody. She's just really pissed off with the whole thing.
Yeah, well, obviously they wanted her to stay in longer to siphon more votes away from Bernie and thereby put Biden in more of a commanding position. She stayed in just long enough to realize she had no chance. And then she was angry when you saw her concession speech, said, "I'm done, goodbye." And you knew that she went against them because they wouldn't give her, probably she demanded to stay in there to become Secretary of Treasury if whomever got elected. And instead they said, "No, you're not getting anything. You have to stay in here." And that was it, because Wall Street would not abide her by being Secretary of the Treasury or anything to do with anything that they care about, Attorney General, whatever. They would just not put up with that, and they know it. So anyway, so I don't buy that it's going to be Hillary, because I think she's got major health issues too. I'm thinking more of a Midwestern governor from either Minnesota or Pennsylvania, because they can't win if they don't get those two states. And Hillary can't win because she's not going to get the Rust Belt. There's no possible way.
I still think that she can. I'm not saying that she will. The computer's saying no. But
they're deluding
I'm just telling
themselves.
you what their wish list is.
Well, they have no good options. They got to run somebody. And, so much of, look at the never Bernie people, the never Biden people, the never Bernie people. None of them are going to vote for Hillary, the Bernie or bust people. So it's going to be a repeat of last time, except she's going to get beaten worse, because this time, even with cheating, there was no possible way that she could win the nomination. So in any event, getting back to financial matters, so is 4 more years of Trump, is that a disaster, or is it going to be more of the same? What are you seeing here? We going to go into a major depression now?
Look, I think we're far better off with Trump there than anybody else at this point, mainly because it looks like we're going into a real monetary crisis. Part of the things being proposed, particularly in Europe, is to eliminate all paper currency.
Right.
And they're saying, paper currency spreads the virus and things of this nature. I mean, you got Illinois saying we're not accepting any more money, all electronic. You got coffee shops in Canada refusing to accept money now. So this is something that's coming. And it's, as I've put on the blog a number of times, they never let a good crisis go to waste. Like 9/11. I mean, all of a sudden we got to take our shoes off. You can't get on a train or a bus or a plane without ID. Who are you? Where are you going? Why? They use that now. I mean, there was a guy here that had 100,000 in cash just going from Tampa to Cincinnati, and they confiscated all his cash. I mean. And he goes, it's $10,000. Well, that used to be international.
Yeah,
so now you got TSA confiscating money domestically. I mean, it's, this is, that's the downside out of 9/11. what's the downside out of this one? It seems to be they're really pushing very hard to eliminate currency because the ECB has no other power. They can't lower rates. Keynesian economics is completely dead. So the next solution is authoritarianism. And the excuse that why the negative rates didn't work was because people could take their cash out of the bank and hoard it.
Right.
So the difference between Europe and America is our currencies here in the U.S. I mean, if you got a $5 bill from 1861, it's still valid. I mean, it's worth a lot more to a collector, but you could still spend it for $5. In Europe, they cancel the currencies all the time. So, I mean, a 20-pound note, even from 20 years ago, is not valid anymore. So the Europeans are used to canceling currencies. They could just stand up and say, okay, fine, we're going to cancel all the currency. That's it. Anybody has currency, you got 2 weeks to bring it into the bank and put it into your account. So the two things they're looking at from that is the argument that if all the cash was in there and it could be hoarded, they wouldn't have this problem. And then the second one is if there is no ability to take cash out, then you eliminate bank runs, and that will, protect the bank. So these are the two things running around in Europe. Europe can go ahead and do that, and without the United States, I don't think Trump would jump on that bandwagon. If we had a Hillary there or a career politician, they would. Oh, okay, fine. They want to do that. That's a good idea. We get more taxes, and this is what they would do. So I just think Trump is not a career politician, so he would be less likely to do something like that. What comes after Trump, I don't know. God help us, because who knows? I mean, I think this older generation of Hillary, etc. This is their last stand.
The last hurrah.
Bernie's, etc. Biden.
Right.
What in 2024? It's going to be a new generation. So people we don't even know about yet will finally get a shot to get up there. Right now, they don't.
Yeah, very true. So stock market, we're going to be in the doldrums. How long do you think it'll be?
If we close today, which is Tuesday, higher than Monday, you'll get a bit of a bounce. We still can go down one more time, probably as late as to the first week of April or so, and then bounce back up. I would say on the Dow, you're probably worst case scenario. You're looking maybe at a test of the 19,000 level, but it's beginning to subside now. The big risk will be going into the end of the quarter, because you're going to see more of this liquidation in everything. I mean, gold, Bitcoin. There is no real safe haven right now. It's cash is king. That's where Bridgewater got it wrong. It's always that way. I did a few interviews when they came out with that statement. Oh, the business cycle is finished and whatever. I said, that's ridiculous. They said that in 1929. Irving Fisher came out and said, that's it. We've reached a new plateau. We'll never go down. And then the market crashed about 3 days later. So yeah, it is exactly the same scenario with Bridgewater's comments. So, I mean, the business cycle always wins. And so I think what you'll see is eventually people are going to begin to see that government doesn't have the power to be Santa Claus. And once that happens, then the confidence is going to move back to the private sector. So that will be more, equities, gold will go up, things of that nature. But you need that shift in confidence first.
Right. So the shift.
Right now, they're just still in a panic state. Oh my God, everybody's going to die from this coronavirus. It's just complete insanity. So I think you get probably after about the first week of April, then things should calm down a bit. I really feel that the press should be investigated.
Yes.
there should be hearings on this whole thing, because it's the same thing as Pulitzer and Hertz. I mean, they beat this thing up to the point that it's just crazy, absolutely crazy. I know plenty of doctors and research or whatever, and they disagree with this whole thing.
Yeah, totally. I've talked to probably 30 to 40 healthcare professionals. Yesterday, my dentist, and he said, these coronaviruses have been around forever, and there's something strange about this that they're either not telling us or that, it's all just fiction. But over this, it's just too much ado about nothing. Yeah, when you add numbers together, everything sounds huge. But then when you try to put them in perspective, they say, oh, no, this one's really going to be bad. It's going to overload the healthcare system, the emergency rooms, all this. Well, we saw in China what happened. But because it happened in China doesn't mean it's going to happen here. So you still think we're going to go back over 30,000, Martin, at some point?
Oh, yeah. I mean, eventually, the long term has not changed. We're still looking at the Dow going back up to probably to test the 40,000 level. But I mean, you're looking at probably at the earliest, I would say, it's possible by 2022. But we need a real slingshot to start this year out of it to do that. But otherwise, you're probably looking more like 2024. And by the time we end the eventual cycle of this, we're looking at around 2032. The Dow could be 65,000 then, but what is the dollar?
Yeah.
What is the value, relative value? Is it going to be real-time new highs or not? That all depends upon the currency and things of that nature. And the real crisis we have is the fact that they're looking at, eliminating currencies and things of this nature, which are probably going to see out of Europe sooner than later.
All right. Well, interesting times for sure. Crazy times. Make sure you go take a look at ArmstrongEconomics.com. We do it every day. Sign up for their email distribution. There's 2-3 articles a day, maybe even join up on the private blog. Martin, I always appreciate you coming on. Questions or comments for Martin, myself, just email us kl@kerrylutz.com. Martin, we'll talk to you again real soon.
All right. Well, thanks for inviting me. Take care.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.